Well, you know, we were told if you get caught in North Vietnam, they're going to try to get you to Hanoi. And if you're caught in South Vietnam, they don't have much resources. And that's the reason in South Vietnam I carried one radio and a gun, because I expected to shoot it out in the South. But over in North Vietnam, I got rid of the gun and had two radios. Some people did try to shoot it out, and they didn't do real well in North Vietnam. So, you know, I didn't think he'd shoot me, but you never know. You know, so anyway, he asked the question the second time, so I figured, okay, he was bluffing the first time. And we went through that drill about 3 times. And he says, okay, he says, now I'm going to have my guards take you out and garrote you. And I'm thinking, James Bond, Russia with Love, piano wire around the throat. You know, I said, oh, this will be great, you know. Well, they have bamboo rope that's about as big around as my little finger. And what they did, they put me on my knees on the dirt in front of the desk, and they took this rope and they tied it just above my elbows, and they, you know, I'm like that, and they cinched it down both sides right to the bone, about the size of a nickel. And it's like white hot barbed wire going through you. I mean, it just, you know, I play football, I box, I play hockey, I did some judo. You know, in those sports, you get whacked and it's a pain and it goes away pretty quick, unless you break something. This was a constant pain. I mean, it was just white hot barbed wire constantly. And I'm thinking, you know, ain't no way I'm going to be able to handle this. I've got to find a way to knock myself out. So the desk right in front of me, so I can fall forward, hit my head on the desk. That'll do it. So I did that. Whacked my head on the desk as hard as I could. That just made me more alert. You know, the soldier comes over and he pulls me back, you know. But when I did that, I heard this groan. And I look out there in the shadows. We're in a big hut. It's dark. They had a lantern with a cover on it, you know. I look out there, and there's like 25 people watching this thing. You had mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, aunts, uncles, grandkids, sons, daughters, aunts and uncles. I was the entertainment that night. Well, he pulls me back. I've got freaking tears coming down, you know. And I think he might have hit me in the face with a sandal. Again, didn't even hardly feel it. And he sort of laughed, you know, the young guy. And I'm up there, you know. And I can't remember the sequence, but I'm looking down, and my arms are purple. I mean, they are darker than that purple, like the shirt of the gentleman in the back there. They were dark purple. And I'm looking down, and the, you know, the interrogator, the soldier, he says, you know, he says, if you don't talk pretty soon, your arms are going to fall off. Well, I got to be honest, that worried me, you know. Meanwhile, you still got this white hot barbed wire going through. And sort of, you know, well, about 5 minutes later, this convulsive, my body starts to convulse. I have no control. The muscles just start to go like that. And this scream comes out of somewhere, you know, the primal scream. And I yelled at the top of my lungs, I will never talk. And probably about 5 minutes later, I says, look, you all untie me, I'll tell you anything you want to know. Okay? Now, how long did this take? You know, 20 minutes, 2 hours, I don't have a clue. For the most part, no one could handle this stuff for more than 2 hours. I suspect mine was probably closer to 20 minutes. Okay? So after I said that, they stand me up, they untie me, and he says, okay, Robert, what city are you from? And I said, Cleveland, Ohio. And he says, okay, Robert. They like to call me Robert. He says, now you may go to sleep. That's my 20 minutes. I believe we have some time for questions.
You have more time than that.
Pardon?
You have more time than that if you want.
Gotcha. Sir?
You never indicated how Were you shot down, Robert? What happened?
I'm going to tell you what happened. There was no enemy defenses. The A4 had a bad habit. Didn't happen often, but you could have a complete hydraulic failure in a bomb run, and everything would lock up. Sometimes if you undid your yaw dampener, that would fix it. It didn't do it in this case, but to be honest with you, I think it was a hydraulic failure. Next.
Tell us about your time in the Hanoi Hilton.
I described that the first 2 months was a nightmare. Yeah, I got wrapped up again when I got to Hanoi. The last 3 years, people don't like this, but virtually a country club. Johnson stopped the bombing in '68, in the fall of '68, presumably to help Humphrey get elected. And the Vietnamese stopped that rope trick. We're still in the 3 or 4 man rooms, but they weren't wrapping us up anymore, and the food got better. In fact, the food got so much better that 7 months later, some of the guards I hadn't seen for a while had put on so much weight I didn't recognize them. And then in the summer of 1969, we started getting sweet milk or sweet toast in the morning. We'd always been getting 2 meals a day at 10 o'clock and 4 o'clock. Basically either rice, big bowl of rice, I can only eat half of it, I'm a little guy, or a loaf and a quarter of French bread. Sometimes the French bread was hot, sometimes it was moldy, taking chances. And then we had a bowl of green soup, and then we had a side plate of squash. After the first couple of months, I got my first roommate on June the 1st, so I was in isolation about 3 weeks. On the 1st of June, I got my first roommates. They moved us out there to the plantation, and we were probably 3 people in a room, pretty good sized room, and we were getting out about an hour a day to do dishes and stuff like that, take our baths. They would give us a bath a day except on Sunday. And that was a treatment up until the summer of '69 when we got the sweet toast. We started playing volleyball in the summer of '69, and then the floodgates opened in the summer of 1970. They moved us out to a compound. I was in a compound with 50 people. We had, 7 rooms, 7 or 8 people to a room. They were double-sized rooms. The rooms usually were like 12 by 12 to 15 by 15 with 3 or 4 people in a room. Okay, I did not like that. I did not like being in a room, and that was my major complaint. When they moved us in the compound, we started getting 2 baths a day. We were outside 6 or 7 hours a day total. They had a freaking ping pong table with a cover on it so we could play ping pong when it rained, and they got a lot of rain in the monsoon season. That was, I hadn't written home or got a letter for 3 years, and then I started writing every month, getting packages every other month. We were getting chess, checkers, we played cards. We had some terrific bridge players come out of that place. I mean, you play bridge to 100,000 points over a weekend, you're going to be pretty good. So we had good bridge players, good chess players come out of there. But the last 3 years, I call a country club. People don't like to hear that. In fact, Hewitt Clark wrote a book, War Somebody from Mississippi, and I was in there, McCain, and Tom Collins from Mississippi was in there from Vietnam. But Hewitt went all the way back to the Civil War, actually the Revolution of people, or the Civil War of people in Mississippi and all the wars and all that. And I talked to him for 6 hours. And he says, first of all, he says, I'm not going to call the last 3 years a country club in my book, But he says, Robert, he says, the only exciting part of your experience was the first week. It was really boring, folks. I can remember that better part of my day, I would be counting these squares. They had ceilings just like that, except they were leaking and they were all beat up. I would count these squares. you know, a couple hours a day. It was just unbelievable work. Uh, to get a little more detail, when, and they moved us out in July of 1970, when the treatment really got better. Well, in November, you had the Santé raid. I don't know if you folks or you guys remember that. They raided the wrong freaking camp. There's nobody there. This would have been in, help me out, November of 1970. Well, they run us all back downtown again. And the Vietnamese were upset. I mean, they were shaking their heads. I could see the head guys out there. As a, you know, it's like, we were going to be in those compounds for the rest of the war, like 3 more years. Well, they ran us all downtown. And they put us back in the Hilton. And at that time, we had 350 prisoners. We had about 50 prisoners to a room, about 7 rooms. The rooms were about this size, big gymnasiums. And we were still getting out 6 or 7 hours a day, 3 meals a day. We're getting packages from home, letters, the same drill, except we didn't have the nice compound, you know. They even put a fan up in this big room like this with a fan with maybe a 1.5-foot blade, you know, electric fan. But, you know, they were trying to do the right thing. One of the Vietnamese told me that, you know, we were sending, anyway, so back to where I started. About 5 years ago, oh, and when we moved back downtown, we took a poll. How many torture days? And we had people there, Alvarez had been there for 2,000 days, you know. The average number of torture days was 25. I thought that was incredibly low. And they would define a torture day as they would put you in stocks for your feet. It didn't hurt, but you just weren't going to be moving anywhere. And it was inconvenient. It didn't hurt, you know. If you were in the stocks for 5 minutes, that counted as 1 full torture day. I felt bad because as much as I could stretch it, I only came up with 16 torture days, okay? Well, about 5 years ago, Mike McGrath, he was the president of the Vietnam POWs organization, Naval Academy. He lives in Colorado Springs now, graduate Naval Academy. This letter comes out about every 3 months. And it had something there about, well, you know, they had the Vietnamese, they wouldn't let us have prayers, and when we wanted to pray, that they took the people in his room and they put them all back into 3- and 4-man rooms. This would have been in January of '71, right after they moved us back. Well, what actually happened was the first Sunday that we got back, we had church services. In my room, we had 50, 60 people, probably had 30 or 40 people in the choir, and we sang pretty loud. Well, the Vietnamese come by and they say, look, we just moved you guys back to Hanoi. Civilians don't know you're here yet. He says, we don't want them to know you're here because it's going to make our job really tough because they want to kill you. So here's the deal. From now on, you can still have your church services, but only 4 people in the choir. And keep it down. Well, the next Sunday, you guessed it, 350 prisoners at the top of our lungs, singing Holy Night, Silent Night, God Bless America, all this stuff. And the Vietnamese says, okay, no more church services. And of course the cry goes out, well, isn't that just like a communist, no freedom of religion? Well, Mike put this in his newsletter. And I call him, I says, Mike, I says, you know that's BS. You know the real reason. And he,